while your house was on fire, you were actually fighting another fire in the house next door. I mean, we're looking at it, and the house is intact. Yours isn't. What was happening?
We were tasked to properly protect the house behind us because it was closest to the bush where they thought the fire might come out from. So we were parked behind their shed, which obscured my place from view. We were there for 45 minutes, maybe an hour before the storm front hit, and it really got us on three sides, so we were just busy fighting that fire to protect the house behind us. It got around the other side of us, which there's a lot of bush, and jumped into my place, so I couldn't see it happening.
What did you do? What were you thinking at that point?
Well, I didn't really saw our house, so it wasn't until the blaze was pretty much brought under control that the team member came and told me that my house was on fire.
And what was going through your mind?
At that time, not a lot, because we didn't have time to think about that. I knew when the house was on fire, it was gone. It was done and dusted, so we went back to station and waited for the next call to go out somewhere else.
Shana Khalil was reporting from Balmoral in New South Wales, Australia. You're listening to NewsHour from the BBC. I'm Paul Henley. 2 years ago, the Iraqi government declared victory over the jihadists of the Islamic State group, who for a time had controlled and wreaked extremist havoc on a third of Iraq. Now, there are more and more signs that IS is regrouping in the north. A Western intelligence source says the IS operation in Iraq now amounts to a sophisticated insurgency, sophisticated and strong, with between 4,000 and 5,000 fighters and a similar number of sleeper cells and sympathizers. Our international correspondent Ola Gerin has returned from the district of Hawaji in northern Iraq, where IS is once more carrying out killings and spreading fear.
We're travelling now with an armed escort of 4 vehicles. The front vehicle has a heavy machine gun. We have about a dozen armed men with rifles in camouflage gear with body armour. We've been given this protection because we're on the road to Hawija. That was the last stronghold of IS in Iraq, the last place to be liberated. Now, the militants don't hold territory there, but they are still operating there using guerrilla tactics, carrying out hit-and-run attacks. We're now in the town of Hawija, and we're inside a base of one of the popular mobilization units. Now, these are local militias that were part of the fight against IS and helped drive them from the town. Well, one of the men I've met here has just survived an IS attack on a checkpoint. His name is Hussein Hamada. He's 24 years old, and 2 of his friends, his brothers in arms, were gunned down in that attack.
It's very difficult. I still cannot sleep. They were my brothers. We would eat and drink and sleep together until Daesh came and separated us.
Do you feel like this fight against IS may never be finished?
It will take a long time, and they will come back with a different name and a different flag. It's hard to stop this killing and destruction.
Just driving along the main road here, what's very striking is the security presence. There are lots of watchtowers and heavily armed police and very few civilians to be seen. This area doesn't look safe and it doesn't feel safe. We've just turned off the main road, going down a back alley now. We're in a village called Rashad, and we're on our way to meet a family that know only too well the danger still posed by IS. We've just arrived inside a compound. There's a few dilapidated buildings here and some geese in the yard in front of me and a tractor. And this was the family home of Zakaria Taha Salah. He was shot dead in October. There are small children running around here. Zakaria's children, he had 5, all under the age of 6. Zakaria was a Mukhtar, a local official who monitors the comings and goings in his neighbourhood and informs the police. In the 2 years since IS lost its territory in Iraq, it has killed 9 Mukhtars in his district alone. Well, we've been told we have to leave now. Our police escort doesn't want us to stay here any longer because of the security risk. But there are other families here who have gone through similar experiences and who are sharing this grief. Since the caliphate crumbled, IS has been driven underground. But Iraq has seen terror grow from these beginnings before, and the fear is a new threat is coming for the region and the West.
Paula Garin reporting from Hawija in northern Iraq. The aircraft maker Boeing has sacked its chief executive as part of attempts to restore confidence in the company following 2 fatal crashes of its 737 planes. Dennis Muilenburg's departure comes a week after production of the aircraft was suspended. Dipole courier, whose father died with 156 others on board the Ethiopian Airlines flight in March, welcomed the news but said it should have happened before now.
It's a bit of a bittersweet moment, I think. It would have been the right thing to have done at the beginning, but he sort of used this as a platform to see whether he could rehabilitate his reputation and prove himself to be worthy of being a CEO. It was the wrong thing to do, so I think he should have resigned a long time ago, but we are glad that he's finally stepped down.
I've been speaking to Sean Broderick, air transport and safety reporter from Aviation Week in the US, for whom the news of this firing did not come out of the blue.
I wasn't surprised by the firing. I'm a little surprised that it's come now, so long after it became very clear that Boeing was in a crisis of historical proportions as far as it goes as a company. We are approaching a year since the MAX has been grounded globally. It was grounded globally in mid-March 2019. And the situation has gotten progressively worse in terms of Boeing's effort to return the airplane to flight, to win regulators' approvals to unground the airplane, and also its handling from a bigger picture perspective of the fallout. Dennis Muilenburg, of course, has presided over the company the entire time. It's clear to me that over the past several weeks that enough time had gone by and the problems were getting progressively worse and had mounted to a point that they needed to make a change, if not a strategic change, then certainly a symbolic change, and that's the kind of change that gets a CEO terminated.
Yes, I've heard some commentators say that the board of Boeing acted decisively. That's being quite kind after a year of crisis, isn't it?
I would say so. It took them 6 months to split the chairman and president's role from Mr. Muilenburg. That happened only a few months ago. And their actions have not brought in much new perspective, new blood, if you will. And this new appointment, it's being set up as a permanent appointment. It's going to be interesting to see if Dave Calhoun is indeed a long-term solution. He, of course, has been on the board of Boeing for 10 years. And can easily make a case that he has as much to do with the 737 MAX or more to do with the 737 MAX than Dennis Muilenburg does.
So a clean pair of hands argument can't feature.
This is not a clean pair of hands. Now, that said, Calhoun has tremendous experience in the business. He has tremendous experience with crisis management at several different companies, including in aviation. He was the head of GE Aviation through 9/11, so the entire industry was thrown into crisis after that situation. He also turned around at Nielsen. He did some crisis management with Caterpillar. So he has experience in extreme corporate circumstances. Certainly, that's where Boeing finds itself today.
The relatives of those who died have a right to demand responsibility, don't they? When you talk of crisis in an industry, normally you're talking about falling profits. Here we're talking about hundreds of deaths.
Boeing certainly has not had a profits issue during this whole scenario, and that may be one of the bigger problems and one of the reasons the board has taken so long to respond. Absolutely, there is a call for someone to take responsibility. Bigger picture, though, Boeing needs to get this right. It needs to work with the people who have been aggrieved. It needs to come to some sort of compensation, some sort of settlement, to do what it can to make up for what those people have lost, and it needs to keep its attention on getting its corporate side in order, getting the airplane back in the air, and delivering on promises it's made to customers.
Sean John Broderick from Aviation Week. Peace talks have restarted between the Taliban and US officials, even as an American soldier became the latest to die in a bomb attack in Afghanistan. It's often women who are worst affected by violent instability. Over the coming week, we're looking at the fate of some of those bearing the brunt of long periods of conflict beginning in Afghanistan. Mashal Kakar lost her husband, a journalist, in the Kabul suicide bombings of April 2018. Just 5 days later, she gave birth to her second son. According to Pashto tradition, she was supposed to marry her husband's brother, but she refused. And a few months ago, she fled the country with her children. Now she's seeking shelter in the neighboring country of Tajikistan, afraid to go back home.
When I lost my husband, I was 9 months pregnant and I gave birth to my second son 5 days after the death of my husband. Of course, it's the big tragedy of our life ever. My kids, they lost their father and I lost my left and life partner. We both were very happy because we both were busy with the day jobs, we had professional life, we were going to the picnics, we were going out for dinner. My husband, he was a journalist, and I remember several times while he was coming back from incidents which happened and he was doing the report, he had tears in his eyes and he was crying and he was saying all the time, I'm seeing blood on the street, I'm seeing women and children on the street, and I was always worried about him. The last time while this incident happened with himself, suddenly a message appeared on my mobile and I saw that an explosion happened in Shashtara, which was close to the office of my husband. When I called him, he answered the phone and he says, usually he was calling me Mashal Jan, and he says, oh Mashal Jan, I'm dying. From that time, actually, I was shocked. I didn't know what to do. I just told her, please be strong, I'm just coming. I found him in hospital finally after searching several rooms because there were too many people and every place there was blood and I was running with my big baby. He looked into my eyes and the first word he said, he told me Benjamin. Benjamin is the name of my elder son. And the second sentence which he told me, that was that, Masha, I love you a lot. You have to know it. I love you a lot. The doctors took him to the operation room and after that I didn't see him anymore and I lost him forever. Afghanistan is also one of those countries where the widow women are faced with poverty, social condemnation. After the death of the husband, and according to religion and culture, young widow women are not allowed to live alone in their own home or to be the decision maker of their own life. Widows are either taken back to their original family or the relative of their husbands. Widow women should marry the second man of husband family. It really doesn't matter for them if she agrees or not. Being the victim of war and war culture, it makes me to run away from my country just to make a bright future for my kids and for myself. Currently, I live alone with my couple in a neighbor country and I'm looking for UN protection. So now I don't have any other option, just I have to stay here and I should make my life. I'm a person which I born in war and I grew up in war and still that I am 29 years old. I'm a mother, I have 2 kids, still the war is continuing. I never want my kids to experience such a thing which I experienced, losing of their family members or loving one anymore. I want them to grow up in a secure place, the place where they could ever go to school, they could continue their education, they should not be victim anymore.
That was Mashal Kakar from Afghanistan. This is NewsHour from the BBC World Service. We're live from London.
Now let's look at what else you can hear from the BBC World Service. In 10 minutes, why is the father-son relationship important?
It appears that the father understands certain things intuitively about raising the son.
The son uses the father as the primary template on which to build his personality.
Then the conversation brings together 2 women celebrating literature.
I think there's something very important and something very magical that happens when they converge on African soil and they are interacting with African audiences. We're a rooted festival, we're a cosmopolitan festival. In Boulder, Colorado, we have a lot of Mexican, Latino, Native American writers.
And at midnight GMT, it's the History Hour. Here's Max Pearson. Past brought to life by those who were there. That's all still to come here on the BBC World Service. And now it's back to News Hour.
And to a reminder of our main story, a UN official has accused Saudi Arabia of making a mockery of justice over death sentences imposed for the killing of the journalist Jamal Khashoggi. Speaking to NewsHour, Saudi commentator Ahmed Ali Braham said his country felt it wasn't the place of outsiders to criticize the kingdom's judicial system.
Justice has been served. Saudi said its word. Saudi is a sovereign country. I cannot just go and grab any political file or somebody in the court system of Birmingham and trying to tell the judge over there how to conduct the execution or the prison imprisonment for a British guy.
One other main news headline this hour, Boeing has sacked its chief executive as the company struggles to deal with the impact of 2 deadly plane crashes blamed on the firm's computer software. Henley with NewsHour. Over the coming week on the World Service, we're hearing from people whose lives have been affected by a change in legislation. Today, our series, The Law That Changed My Life, we go to South Africa, where on January the 1st this year, a minimum wage came into effect. The rate was set at 20 rand per hour, about 3,500 rand per month. That works out as roughly $1.40 an hour, or $240 a month. When it was introduced, some of the unions decried it as too little. Some businesses wondered how they'd be able to raise wages and still cope. We talked to a domestic worker and a businessman to see what had changed for them. You'll also hear the voice of the South African President, Cyril Ramaphosa, talking about the legislation.
My name is Pelula Himela. I'm a domestic worker.
Gerard Papenvoes, Chief Executive of the National Employers Association of South Africa.
Every day I do the washing and ironing and cleaning the house and feeding the cats.
Representing a couple of thousand employers, big business, but also small and medium enterprises.
National minimum wage in South Africa should start off at 3,500 rand per month, which amounts to 20 rand per hour.
I'm very proud with my work. I like my work. Many people, they work only 10, 8, 5, but me, I work for 20 years. Only I'm worried about money. In September, I started to get 3,500. That is the minimum wages. Many domestic don't get that money. Some are still earning 1,000, 70.5. Me, I'm better, just because I'm getting that minimum. I think my boss didn't know about the minimum. He's just giving me just because I was working hard.
It was aimed at reducing income poverty in South Africa, beginning to address the issue of inequality in our society.
I think the impact was negative in especially rural areas. If you're paying 1,500 rand to an employee in a rural area, it sounds little, but this is a reality. And you're all of a sudden told to pay 3,500, you're simply not able to do that. So I think employers, in order to still employ these people, had to reduce working hours. I think in very few cases the wages were actually increased. It served as a deterrent for new employment, without a doubt.
It's a breaking story this hour. South Africa's unemployment rate has increased to 29% in the second quarter, the highest level in 11 years. The
economists will say that in a developing country with a high unemployment rate, it makes absolutely no sense to introduce a minimum wage. And if we want to employ on a mass scale in South Africa, which we need to do because of the political and socio-economic risks of unemployment, we'll have to do away with this type of arrangement.
I I buy food for my brother is crippled. He found a car accident. So I buy food. I pay money for the rent every month. And now I have my bills. I must pay their money for policies, for insurances. I have chronic diseases. Every month I go to the hospital and I'm paying. So sometimes I left with 1,000 rand or 500 rand. It doesn't last me the whole month. Sometimes I borrow to my mother to buy something if my food is finished. Sometimes I don't do it. I just take till the end of the month.
What we are seeking to balance is that the wage that we set in place should have an impact of lifting the lowest paid workers, but it should not also be too high to lead to massive job losses.
If you work in a small holding and you say, I can employ 20 workers. If I pay them 2,000 rand a month, I can employ 20. An act comes and says, no, you're not allowed to do it. You must pay them 3,500. And what he turns around and says, but then it's better to buy a tractor. Employers like it to employ. But if it's cheaper to buy a tractor than employ 20 people, then you buy the tractor.
I want to say to the president, he must help us and put more money. That minimum is too little. We have children. Now education is very high. Food is very high. So that money is too little.
That was Paulina Maimela, and you also heard from Gerhard Pappenfuss. Listen tomorrow for the next in our series, The Law That Changed My Life, when we'll be reporting from Russia. Now finally on NewsHour today, it probably hasn't escaped your attention. The year is fast drawing to a close, and that means that here on this programme it's time to observe sort of a festive tradition.
Throughout 2019. It's Ramadan, and this is one of the main checkpoints in Bethlehem.
BBC NewsHour has travelled the globe.
A very warm hello from New York.
To bring you all the analysis you need.
Welcome to Rush Hour Caracas. It has certainly been a turbulent few months in Venezuela.
To understand an ever-changing world.
Which film, released in 2019, became the highest grossing movie of all time?
But when it comes to popular culture,
Tim looks very confident.
Yes.
Avengers.
You may want to look elsewhere.
What, wasn't it The Avengers?
That's not what I would say. Can we confer?
You can't change mid-answer,
Sorry?
can you? No, I'm pretty sure it was the one, it was
Go on then.
the Avengers final ultimate thing.
No. Avengers Endgame. Avengers Endgame is the right answer.
Final thing.
Oh, it depends on the translation, because if you were watching it in China,
from America.
that is what the title is.
Find out just how much of 2019 has actually sunk in for this long. On December the 25th, on NewsHour.
It's a sort of ritual humiliation. You can hear some of NewsHour's finest, including me, battle it out of the 2019 news quiz in the second half of the programme this coming Wednesday the 25th of December. And if you miss it on air, for whatever reason, you will be able to find it in our podcast feed. Just search for BBC NewsHour in your preferred app in order to subscribe. And that's it for this edition of NewsHour. Thank you for listening. We hope you can join us again soon. Bye-bye from now. For now, from the whole team.